Hello everyone and welcome back! After the horrific events of the Persona Island video, Adam and I have been stranded at sea and are currently trying to find a way back home.
Speaking of, buddy, I'm really starting to question your priorities.
What do you mean?
Well, you could have grabbed food, water, or even a cell phone, but no. You decided to grab your GameCube, TV, and a portable battery.
Adam, you're a genius.
Oh fuck, what have I done?
Instead of sitting here and wasting my time doing something like, I don't know, rowing the boat, why don't we kill the time by figuring out who's going to end up being the very best like no one ever was and becoming champion, and who's gonna die on Route 5 to a random Rattata.
Why don't we do literally anything else?
Few things we do need to mention at the top though. To put it simply, we're going to be doing two things for each character today. We're first going to design them a full team of Pokemon. I'll be deciding these teams off of a few different factors that will start to become apparent as we get into the video. But another important aspect was that I actually asked the community for input on almost every single character here. I'll make sure to highlight some notable comments as we go along. And then secondly, we're going to judge just how far they can make it in the journey. First of which, this is not going to be taking place in any particular region. It would be way too limiting to try to pick one of them and then make all of their teams based off that. So we are going to be throwing them into the imaginary world of Johto. What do you mean that's already taken? Then, rather than make this a tier list structure or follow them day by day, we decided we're going to illustrate the progress all of these characters make on their journey through this map. But please note, this is not actually the Unova region. It's just a circular map that was easy to use for this project. And then finally, just to make things interesting, don't take this too literally. I'm not going to judge this based off exactly how the games go, because realistically, any 7-year-old with enough revives and hyper potions could beat a Pokemon game. So I'm going to treat this scenario as if they were thrown more into the anime side of things, where a trainer could just get stumped on their 6th gym and give up. Otherwise, every single character here would win besides like maybe Morgana. Then we gotta throw the obligatory spoiler warning list up on the screen. Come on, Adam, give it a bit more gusto than that. All right, that's probably enough. Then finally, if there are any changes you would make to one of these characters' teams, let me know in the comments down below. Because remember, engagement. And honestly, be ready for some stretches. Because believe it or not, some of these nutcases were harder to concoct teams for than you think. With all that out of the way, hey there, the name's JoeFredrick, and welcome to Pokemon vs. Persona 2024! Let's go ahead and get us started off with the Persona 3 protagonists, Femc and... Given how closely these two are linked at the hip, they're pretty much going to share the same team, but with some minor differences. For simplicity's sake, we're going to open with Makoto. To start off, we're going to give him both Meloetta and Darkrai. These are both to represent both his canon personas of Thanatos and Orpheus. While there were plenty of other music-based Pokemon I could have used to represent Orpheus, I personally felt like they didn't exactly fit the bill. Then following them up is Vaporeon, Absol, Marshadow, and Indeedee. You'll quickly notice I'm going to give each of the protagonists an evolution. Since the Full Arcana ties to limitless possibilities, what better Pokemon is there to represent that than Eevee? And while Orpheus does use fire skills, I decided to go with Vaporeon to not only reflect the color blue, but this also ties in with all the water imagery introduced in Reload. Then I decided to give him an Absol. This is meant to derive inspiration from the fact that Absol is often seen as this Pokemon of calamity, when in reality, he's only there to prevent it. Marshadow was selected to represent the player's connection to Pharaohs, and then finally there's Indeedee. So not only does it have male and female variants, where the males are shown to be reclusive and dismissive, and the females are cheery and friendly, but they also both have blue and pink as distinguishing colors. Oh yeah, and they also both can learn Healing Wish. Do with that as you will. As for Katone, her team is pretty much identical. Just swap the forms of Meloetta and Indeedee, then Vaporeon for Sylveon, and we're good to go. Hey, it's Future Joe here. So remember when in the intro I said that I polled the community for input on all of these? Well, I didn't actually start doing that until way later in the video. So consider this entry 1 in a series I like to call Joe didn't think this through, so the community saved him. Yeah, so when I posted the poll about the Persona 3 protagonists, a lot of you actually suggested that they should have an Arceus to represent Messiah. Full disclosure, when making all of the protagonist teams, I didn't even consider their ultimates at all, so this was kind of a wake-up call. So instead of redoing the whole segment, just go ahead and swap out Meloetta for Arceus around like the 7th or 8th gym and we're good to go. As for how I think Makoto and Katone's adventures would go, they're actually pretty simple. I believe that Makoto would make it all the way to the Elite Four and become champion, before mysteriously disappearing at some point. Sound familiar? And then Katone could probably become champion, but I think she'd be a lot more interested in the Pokemon contest side of the universe. So she'll probably get all 8 gyms and then go do that side quest for a few years. Damn, handling the protagonist back there must have made this look pretty easy, huh?
Only requiring one revision.
Well, it was, until this freak rolled around. All right, so I like Yukari, but when it comes to this particular topic, goddamn does she give me hardly anything to work with. But I think I managed something somewhat competent. I gave her Decidueye to represent her skill with the bow and arrow, a Sigilyph to represent her persona, and then a Clefable given its strong ties to the moon, and I personally felt like it fit her vibe. But unfortunately, from this point forward, I was out of ideas, which isn't good considering we're only halfway there. Luckily, I had some cards up my sleeve. I was hoping to hold on to them in case of an emergency, but motherfucking Takeba. Slap on a Blissey to represent her absolutely insane healing capabilities in Reload. Then we give her a Riolu since we know she grows up to be an actress, and Riolu is one of your acting partners in Pokestar Studios. And then finally, slap on an Altaria, since as my good friend Stivit put it so eloquently when discussing with him, give her an Altaria because her dad is dead. As for Yukari, I don't actually think she'd be too interested in the gym challenge. She might pick up 1 or 2 of them on her way, but since I already mentioned she becomes an actress in her games, I think it would make sense if she was a Pokestar Studios actress, spending her time making movies rather than battling. Junpei Iori. You know, some people have been kind of bummed how I've been treating you over the past few videos, so I went out of my way to make sure you had an absolutely stacked team this time around.
You're the man.
Leading off Junpei's team, we've got Machop to represent his toxic masculinity. All right, jokes aside, doesn't Machop just feel right here? Like, put the two next to each other and tell me they're not best friends. Then we give him a Dunsparce. Might seem a little out of left field, but when making these teams for this video, I was discussing with a friend who Junpei should have on his team, and the way they described it to me was, Junpei is the kind of guy to get the 1% Dunsparce encounter in Pokemon Silver and use it for the rest of the game because he thinks it's really rare and super powerful. And that alone sold me on the idea. Then to give him some actual competent Pokemon, we're gonna give him a Cinderace since it's a sports player with an affinity for fire. Then an Alolan Marowak because it's a club-wielding fire type. You can figure it out. Then we give him a Mismagius to represent his everlasting bond with Chidori.
See, I can be nice to Junpei sometimes, guys.
And I believe Junpei's final Pokemon is at the center point of the Venn diagram between Cinderace, Dunsparce, and Machop. And that Pokemon is Simisear. As for where his adventure will take him, I believe that Junpei would get maybe 2-3 gyms in before getting stumped on the 4th gym leader. After whiting out 2 or 3 times, he would go back to a previous route to try to grind and then get mangled by an Ursaring. Yeah, I'm not gonna waste too much time tying the bear into this one. Just check that off the JoeFredrick video requirements and we're good to go.
No, I'm done. Fuck you, fuck.
Shifting gears to discuss an actual man, let's talk about the bear killer himself, Akihiko. And honestly, this one's kind of easy to figure out. Akihiko's team consists of Hitmonchan and Primeape, due to both of them being depicted as boxing-type Pokemon. Then we'd give him a Zeraora, an electric fighting type that perfectly matches Akihiko's combat capabilities. Hey, turns out Zeraora is not an electric fighting type. That's bullshit, I'm not changing. Then we give him an Ursaring because... And finally, slots 5 and 6 are reserved for good old reliable 1 and 2. But could Akihiko beat the Elite Four with essentially only 4 Pokemon? Yeah, probably. Not only do I think he could beat the Elite Four and the champion, I actually think he would become a Battle Tree champion. I don't know, maybe his specific challenge would be like fighting hand-to-hand with him, and if you beat him, you can fight him as a trainer. That would be kind of silly.
You have some serious issues.
Can you shut up? I'm trying to talk about Mitsuru. First off, she's going to lead with an Alolan Ninetales and Frostmoth, both of them being very elegant-looking ice types, and to be honest, Frostmoth was really reminding me of Mitsuru's stupid puffy coat from Arena. Then she'll get a Sinistea to call back to her dorm interactions where she makes you tea. This is a real video I'm making, isn't it? Then she gets a Serena, since they both have a lot of kicking type type maneuvers in their combat style. Also, Serena has a crown on her head, and considering Mitsuru is the heiress to the Kirijo name, I don't know, I think it fits. Then we round off the team with an Excavalier to represent her prowess with lances, and then finally a Persian, since her dad kind of reminds me of Giovanni. All right, full disclosure, there was a lot of feedback on who should be on Mitsuru's team, but I'm gonna wait to address that until we get to Yusuke. You'll understand why when we get there, just stick around. As for just how far I think Mitsuru will get in her journey, I think she could reasonably beat the Elite Four, but I don't think she would be that interested in holding the champion spot, though I could see her becoming one of the members of the Elite Four. Fuka Yamagishi.
Is that JoeFredrick?
First off, swap a Rotom oven in there because her killer cooking. And no, I'm not gonna reuse that bit for Yukiko. Stop asking. Then we give her a Comfey to call back to her gardening interactions and reload. After that, you smack on an Alakazam due to her intelligence and its long-distance telepathic abilities. Then to represent her love for computers, we'd give her a Porygon and a Magearna. Then we would finish her team with a Wishmer. This is to call back to her father being an audio engineer, but in all honesty, it's more so that I see Fuko like this. As far as her journey goes, I don't really see her being the adventuring type. I could more so see her being an assistant to the region's professor, not really venturing farther than the starting town. Next up is the funny dog. And I'm sorry, little buddy, I didn't really give you a lot of time in the last video. So let's really sink our teeth into this one and give him some cool Okay, maybe I overdid it there. Well, I'll make up for it when we cover Aegis's team. Surely I can divulge about Metis? Okay, so when it comes to these three characters, it's kinda hard to find a place for them. Sure, while it would be easy to make the Koromaru's a Pokemon joke, Aegis and Metis are, a lot more human than they aren't? Alright, here's the stupid idea. Aegis, Metis, and Labras, she's not getting a team, don't even fucking think about it, are all creations by the evil team of the region serving as admins. But eventually they have redemption arcs. Now, why would there be a need for robot girls in the Pokemon universe? Shinjiro! First, we give him an Annihilate to draw comparison to not only Akihiko's Primeape, but the relation between their two personas. Then after that, we're going to give him a Haxorus and type Null to represent his proficiency with axes. Next, we'll give him a Crocodile because it's a big, mean, scary Pokemon with a very similar color palette to him. Then we give him a Poochyena. Not only is this a first form dark puppy that alludes to his bond with Koromaru, but the delinquent trainer class in the actual games use Mightyenas most often, so this kind of was a perfect combination of things. Then finally, we'll give him an Alcremie to not only tie in his talents as a chef, but also his soft nurturing side. While Shinjiro looks an intimidating trainer, like maybe a rival or some kind of antagonist, I actually think he's the kind of guy that would catch a handful of his favorite Pokemon and then only travel around with them, being able to hold his own in battle, but he more so travels around helping trainers on their journey. So, I don't know, I guess put him in the middle. Now let's talk about Ken. As much as I'd love to just smack him with a full team of baby Pokemon and maybe a box of Fruit Loops, let's be a bit more reasonable and give him a chance. For his first two Pokemon, Ken would have a Surfetch'd and a Manectric, the former being inspired by the various hero media he likes to consume, alongside the visual of a small dude with a really big weapon, and the latter being yet another reference to his bond with Koromaru, this time being fully evolved to express the amount of time he got to spend with Koromaru in comparison to Shinjiro, and the electric type being chosen to represent his Zeo skills. Then he gets a Cerule Edge, as yet another reference to the various Neo Featherman content he consumes. Next he gets a Morpeko because what is Ken but a tiny little rat who acts all friendly until his demons come out. Then round him off with the Zooral because crying, and Cubone because his mom is dead, and we're done. As for his chances of becoming a Pokemon master, he'd probably get 3 or 4 gyms in before getting walled and kinda just giving up forever, becoming a youngster trainer to forcibly challenge anyone with a real chance at becoming a champion. And with that, we're done with Persona 3. Now, this is the part of the video where you might expect me to start talking about maybe the Velvet Room attendants, or Ryoji, or Kiryu, but we're actually going to trim the list this time around. You guys know me, I love throwing in as many stupid characters into these videos as possible, but for the subject matter for today, I just personally felt like if we opened up the board to all of those characters, it might bloat the conversation a little bit. So I ran a poll on my community tab, and you guys said that you would actually be be interested in a sequel video. So if you want to see a video where I talk about all of these characters and their Pokemon teams, go ahead and let me know down in the comments below. But that's gonna wrap us up with Persona 3. So in the meantime, let's get schmoving on into Persona 4 with Yu Narukami. The first two are going to be pretty easy. He starts off with a circuitry because it's reminiscent of Izanagi, and he gets a Jolteon to keep up the evolution trend. Then he gets an Aegislash and Gallade to represent his swordsmanship and leader-like abilities. Then he gets a shiny Gyarados to represent the guardian fish he catches during the events of the game. I figured this was important enough to bring in here since the anime dedicated an entire arc to it. Then finally, he gets a Ditto. I know we already gave him Jolteon to represent infinite possibilities, but come on guys, everything in Persona 4 is about not being stuck with the hand you're dealt, and not being molded by others' perceptions of you. So isn't it fitting to give him the Pokemon that can take on any form? Whoa, sorry to interrupt this very tactful Yu Narukami fucks joke, but we've got another revision here. Like with Makoto, since we gave him his ultimate persona in the form of Arceus, we had so many people comment that Yu Narukami just had to have Reshiram. But little did I know that Reshiram is the Pokemon of truth. So yeah, go ahead and throw that on the pile. As for his journey, I think he'd end up taking down the Elite Four and becoming champion like Makoto. Then eventually continue his journey through the region, eventually finding himself on a mysterious mountain where the region's previous champion stands silently, issuing a challenge to the new blood, leading to a battle of epic proportions. Are you getting the reference yet? Now we need to discuss everyone's favorite deranged Redditor, Yosuke. Yosuke's first Pokemon will be a Greninja because
Ninja Frog!
And fuck it, throw in Ninjask for the same reasons. Next, he gets a Doublade to represent his proficiency with dual-wielding one-handed weapons. Then he gets a Hitmontop because motherfucker just loves to spin for God knows what reason. Then we're going to give him a Trubbish because evidently it's such an important trait that Yosuke rolls around in a trash can that it's not only in the intro of Persona 4 Golden, but in like every spin-off for some reason. Then finally, smack down the fucking fridge to represent Junes, and because I'm a man of my word. Now this was originally going to be the part of the video where I felt like I had to defend my take that Yosuke could actually become a champion. But when I ran a poll on my community tab, it actually wasn't as divisive as I thought it was going to be. However, for those of you who voted against him, I'll give you the Pyrrhic victory of the fact that I think he ends up being like Gen 1 Blue. What I mean by that is I do think he becomes the champion, but only for 30 seconds. Then Narukami comes in, washes the floor with him, and then disappears instantly with the title in hand. Someone must have doinked a palm tree because I just found a coconut. To get her started, I decided to give her a Miltank because... Then follow it up with Kommo-o to represent her love for Trial of the Dragon. Then she'd get a Hitmonlee to represent her kicking abilities, as well as a Crabominable, a fighting ice type to reflect her persona's moveset. Then she gets a shiny Minun, which I'll explain in a moment, then round it off with a Munchlax because... When it comes to her journey, I think she would initially try to take on the gym challenge, but would probably get roadblocked around the 4th or 5th gym, not really being able to devise a strategy other than high jump kick and then wonder why her Pokemon keep...
Okay, it's time to start Yukiko now.
Leading the charge for Amagi, she would get both Talonflame and Oricorio, in reference to both her Shadow and Persona. Then we give her a Blossom to not only represent her affiliation with Flower Petals, but also Yukiko! Then for her 4th Mon, we'll give her a shiny plus Ultra match with Chie to represent their unwavering
platonic
love for each
friendship.
other. Then, you know what, fuck it. Give her Rotom Fan because her goofy ass weapon of choice, and then an Exploud because she... While most of her friends have had varying levels of success in the Pokemon Challenge, I don't really feel like that's Yukiko's style. She more so feels like to me what Brock or Clement was in the anime. Sure, she might have had a couple of Pokemon she gets into occasional battles with, but she comes off more as a traveling companion to the protagonist, tending to the campsite and cooking for the group. I think we solved the mystery of Chie's 4th gym roadblock.
The hell with the exams.
It's time to give me a team of Pokemon.
Alright, let's get the ball rolling and give Kanji an Electivire and Zebstrika. 2 really cool electric types that I think fit his vibe. And if you cram them together, you get Taki's Meet Your Zucchini. Then we give him an Ice Cube because...
Hands off the penguin!
Then I decided to give him a Kartana and Tarantula... The yarn bug. These were inspired by his love for crafts. And finally, we round him off with giving him the chair. Now, if you're one of my viewers who knows jack shit about Persona, but is just here to listen to my bullshit, you freaks are the scariest ones. You might be looking at Kanji and expect him to be one of the villain team grunts, or maybe even some rival rapscallion. Well, you're wrong. Kanji is a Pokemon contest champion, and no one's gonna stop it. The funny detective is up next, and holy shit, I was stumped on this one. Almost every single Persona character has at least some niche interests I can use to scrounge up a partner for. Or at the very damn least, a type affinity to steer me in the right direction. But Naoto? She learns almost every single affinity in Golden. I considered giving her an Eevee, but then she's encroaching on the whole protagonist trend with that gimmick. So it isn't going to be pretty, but I've made some tough decisions. The first few of Naoto's Pokemon are going to consist of Remoraid because
Use a gun.
then a Blastoise and Kingdra because
Use more gun.
then we'd give her a Vikavolt since it's the closest thing I could find to her persona. And then finally, we'd give her Kaiji Tang and Ryan Reynolds respectively Detective Pikachus. And we're fucking packing it up! If you have any better ideas, let me know in the comments, cause I had nothing! As for her journey, she's not a gym challenge trainer or even a gym leader. Naoto takes on the role that Looker did in Pokemon Platinum, occasionally crossing paths with the player as she investigates the evil organization's schemes. And at most, maybe pulling a lance at some point and storming down their base with her strongest Pokemon.
I alone am the honored one.
Next up is Risei, and man oh man, how am I ever gonna come up with a team? Yeah, I'm not even gonna bother with this bit. Now, you might expect me to instantly throw her into the Pokemon contest profession, giving her work as an idol. But thanks to Persona 5's movie poster cameos, we know that she's going to grow up and pursue an acting career, earning her a spot next to Yukari in Pokestar Studios. So, fun fact, I wrote the majority of this script back in February of 2024. It is now October, and Christo just informed me I never wrote an entry for Teddy.
That's not even close.
So this one is going to be pretty simple. He leads the pack with the Delibird. Not only is the color palette pretty close, but they both have moves that are entirely up to chance. Then we're going to give him an Alolan Meowth. This is to match the annoying twink-ass energy he has outside of the suit. Adriana Gretz looking at. And then finally, just give him a bunch of shit-eating stage 1 bears and we're done. I wasn't sure at first what to do with Teddy as far as his journey goes. He doesn't exactly seem like the gym challenge type, but then I thought about the drag contest in Persona 4 and how much he enjoyed the theatrics of that, and thought maybe he'd become a Pokemon contest performer, but that was entirely contingent on his ability to get to the stadium without being mauled alive by a horde of Mightyena, and I'm sorry, that's just not happening. And that's going to wrap us off with Persona 4. But before we get into Persona 5, I do just very quickly want to do my obligatory shill. I'll make it quick, but in the last video, you might have heard that I have a Patreon now. If you were to join, you'd get all of the benefits up on screen right now, alongside free physical and digital versions of my tabletop RPGs and a chance to cameo in my videos. Let's actually go ahead and give a demonstration of that now. Starting us off with Makoto Nijima, let's give a warm round of applause to Ask Retros.
Hey everyone, Aaron of the Retro System here. For Makoto, we have two possibilities in mind. To be clear, this is not an alternate timelines bit. We know better than to subject Adam and Kayan to that again. The first scenario is she ends up in the world of Pokemon of the mainline games. While there, we think she would follow a similar arc to what happens in Persona 5, working for the evil team of the region. She'd then grow attached to the Pokemon given to her, and realize that the team she was working for was in fact evil, and then either strike it out on her own with her new companions to take the evil team down, or do what she could to disrupt them from within. If we wanted to put this in terms of the gym challenge performance, she'd get to around gym 7 or 8 before hitting a wall and stopping. The other scenario we had in mind is where she...
Well, that sure was swell. Thank you so much, Retros. But seriously, if you do enjoy my content and want to support it as well as the team, because as much as I love to lock these guys in their editor dungeons, I want to give them better wages than what the ad rates can let me give them, so please consider checking that out. You know, I hate showing. Let's just move along to Joker Persona 5! Joker's team was actually one of the easier ones to figure out during this whole process. We can make some very easy early inclusions, such as Ogerpon and Umbreon. The former being a Pokemon that changes its types and abilities based on what mask it's wearing? This was an absolute shoo-in for Joker's team, and thank God I made this video before that DLC came out. Whereas the latter maintains the Eevee Protag status quo. I know that some of you would argue that it should be Flareon given given red is the more predominant color associated with Persona 5. But not only do I think black is just as an integral color to the Persona 5 aesthetic, the dark type better lines up with the curse type that Arsene uses. Then for his third Pokemon, and please try not to laugh, I know this is gonna sound stupid, but we're gonna give him the fucking keys. I thought this would be a pretty interesting way to represent his lockpicking and thief-like abilities. Then we give him a Zoroark to represent Arsene. Not the closest in appearances, but not only is the color palette similar enough, Arsene was known as the Master of Disguise, which is kinda Zoroark's whole thing. Then we'd round him off with a Thievul and Meowscarada. Not only are these both thief and mask-like Pokemon that fit the aesthetic perfectly, but Meowscarada's hidden ability is Protean, which allows it to essentially change its type on the fly, which is very similar to the mask swapping mechanic. And then finally, like all the protagonists, he would eventually swap out Zoroark with Giratina to represent Santanaya. Is that how you say it? Santanaya? Santanaya? The big demon with a gun. And I really thought that was going to be the end of it for Joker. I was really proud of this team. But then I got a comment that absolutely blew my mind with how clever it was. A user, who I'm going to abbreviate to David Legend, very fitting, commented Lucario. Lucario was based off of Anubis, who is the one who judges hearts in Egyptian mythology. Plus, Anubis is one of Ren's personas he uses in the Persona 3 DLC fight. Not only does that tie back into Anubis's lore, it's also one of the few personas we know he canonically uses. And it came from DLC that came out after I scripted this video. So honestly, David Legend, congratulations, you're the Fredhead of the day. For his place on the board, while he easily sweeps the 8 gyms and becomes champion, I thought it would be hype as fuck to make him a cool cafe owner, where the player can stumble into and accidentally proc a Cynthia level threat out of nowhere. But as neat as this idea is, someone's gotta hold the champion position while emos 1 and 2 are constantly clashing on that mountain. Okay, Adam, I'm running out of ways to segue between these sections in a clever way. And since Ryuji is your boy, you wanna take this one?
I suppose I can pull myself away from angling for a minute. It says here that Ryuji's first 2 Pokemon are buggers called Scrafty and Toxicity, because they are delinquent freaks?
I was going to clean it up in post.
Well, I suppose they weren't horrible choices, since Google tells me Loose Leggins here is a physical fighter and the lead singer of Motley Crue joining us uses electricity. So you seem to have covered the basics there. And then you gave him an anchor because?
He's got a fucking pirate persona, man. This is the best I can work with.
I suppose that also explains the shark torpedo. You actually play this shit?
Finish the list.
Alright, then he gets the Goku Monkey because Sun Wukong, and then Dusk Noir because Skull. Are we done?
Yeah, keep your crumpets in a bunch. Here's the next week's rations.
I don't get paid enough for this shit.
Anyways, getting to his place on the board, I think he could brute force his way through the gyms, but never quite the Elite Four. He feels more like one of those friendly rivals Pokemon started make. Oh my god, he's just buried. On to Kamiki. Oh, she's just so boring. Like with Yukari, I had to take some liberties, but I think I made something pretty decent here. We start off by giving her a Salazzle. Kind of a interesting choice, but it's supposed to reference Carmen, since they both deal with being strong women who order around weak, pathetic men. Then we go ahead and give her a plethora of cats. So give her a shiny Lightbird and then 2 of them flame felines. Next, a Swirpuff to call back to her affiliation for sweets. Seriously, I really had to stretch this one. And then finally, an Oricorio, thanks to this very clever justification provided by Vimix3157. As for her travels, she would basically bounce between Pokestar Studios and the Shiny Hunting Resort. She had to get that shiny Lightbird somewhere, right? Ironically, I have more things to say about the narrative-killing cat than the woman he objectifies. So let's just blitz right through it. Obviously, Morgana has to have a Meow. He's a fellow talking cat with an obsession for money, which is also the reason I'm going to give him a Gimmighoul. Then he gets a Revavroom to reference his car form. Seriously, dude, you're gonna see Gen 9 gave us a lot of Morgana Pokemon. Then ironically enough, the tiny cretin would have a huge Snorlax, because Morgana likes to tell people to sleep. Wow. Then a Wishy-Washy because... Then finally, we'll give him a shiny Palafin hero form to represent Zoro. I mean, dude, when you look at their color palettes and their poses, they're almost identical. Then for his journey, there's no actual way he's going to be a trainer, which means there are really only 2 realities that could happen. So I'm gonna put it to a vote. Either he's going to ride around with Joker on his head or shoulder like Pikachu does in the anime, or that oddly realistic Ursaring on Route 5 is going to be getting a tasty snack. So let's throw it to the community and see what the people think. You know what, guys? That's honestly pretty fucking boring. I expect better from you. Be more violent in the future. Time for Yusuke, and I actually had a bit of fun making this team. To get the obvious picks out of the way, he's going to get a Smeargle and Grafii. Grafifi? Grafofo? Also, I've got a bone to pick. I did a poll for Yusuke about which Pokemon he should have, and I put very clearly, guys, he's gonna have a Smeargle. I'm just not putting him in the vote because I know everyone would vote that. And then I got so many comments from you guys saying, where's Smeargle? He would obviously have a Smeargle. Do you fucking read? Then following them up would be an Empoleon in reference to Goemon. This also could have easily been Samurott, so take your pick of which you prefer. Then I think it's only fitting to give him some beautiful looking Ice-type Pokemon. So give him a Glaceon and a Frostlass. And yes, while this is encroaching on the protagonist's evolution trend, I'm not gonna fault him for it, because for some reason, no mainline Pokemon game wants to let you have access to Glaceon either before the 7th gym or post-game. So I don't even think it counts at this point. Hey, it's come to my attention that I got a little heated in this section, so I've come here from the future to let you guys know I'm pissed for a different reason. Remember when I said that there were problems with Mitsuru's team I was going to address in the Yusuke section? Well, it's that time. I had so many people comment that Yusuke should have a Alolan Ninetales, but I, as you're going to see in a second, decided to give him a Glaceon instead. Now, I had a few reasons for this. The first one being I already gave Alolan Ninetales to Mitsuru because I just genuinely think it not only fit her vibe better, but the color palettes between Mitsuru and Yusuke line up way better with Alolan Ninetales and Glaceon respectively, with white being Mitsuru and light blue being Yusuke. But then I had so many people commenting, but remember when we were mad about Alolan Ninetales because this is unscripted and I forgot to mention this a few seconds before? Yeah, remember that? Well, Yusuke's literally an ice fox. It makes sense that he has the ice fox Pokemon. As if Glaceon isn't also a fox and isn't also an ice type. Oh yeah, also Frostlass is kind of close to the whole Sayuri painting thing, so I don't know, I thought it was cool. Then, you know, we gotta give him a lobster. As for Yusuke's chances in the Pokemon world, it really doesn't matter. Nothing would change. Like, you could throw Yusuke into any universe possible, and he's gonna get way too tunnel visioned on something stupid, and it's gonna make him paint it. And as funny as it would be to throw him into the void partially off screen of the map, if I had to force him into one of these categories, I guess he would go to the shiny hunting resort, as they would make the best muses for his pieces. But clearly he's never going to top my Pokemon artistic masterpieces.
Isn't that just a coloring book?
I didn't ask for your input. Look, everyone, it's my favorite character to talk about. You know, it's kind of funny. Given my history of having very little to talk about when it comes to Haru, I surprisingly had no trouble putting her team together. Most obviously, she leads with a Tinkaton, perfectly capturing her small girl with big weapon gimmick. Beware would also have a spot on her team because not only, haha, bear, we get it guys, it's a JoeFredrick video, we gotta talk about a bear every once in a while. It's a seemingly pink, cute Pokemon that is actually very violent, which for some reason you all think is Haru's thing. That video is gonna come out eventually disproving it. Then she'd have a Roserade, not only in reference to her care for gardening, but also the mask Roserade wears is kind of similar to Haru's. Fourth, she'd have a Tapu Lele because of the pink hair and they're both psychic types, then a Milotic because the Beauty Thief should have the beauty Pokemon, and finally a Cleavor, the final remaining Axe Pokemon I didn't already give to Shinji. I feel like Haru would be one of those reoccurring rival types who the player would face off against a few times, only to get to the end of the game where she's swapped her entire party for like 5 Rayquazas and still a Tinkaton. Honestly, that pairing is just too good to split up. Just when I thought my strength was fading, he descended from the heavens to give me strength. It's time to talk about the silly boy! Akechi's team was, of course, incredibly easy for me to decipher. I am his biggest fan, after all. The first half of his team represents his dark suit demeanor, leading him to start with the Corviknight, a scary-looking bird that matches his suit and aesthetics. Similarly, I actually wanted to give him a low kicks as well. I know Bulbapedia says the name is made up of the words locust and kicks, but come on, man! Not only does the color palette look identical identical to his dark suit, but the name literally has Loki in it. I'm giving it to him. Then for his final dark suit Pokemon, I'd give him a midnight form Lycanroc to represent his downright feral combat style. As for his Prince suit team, I would give him a Decidueye in place of Robin Hood, but I already gave him to Yukari. So instead, we're going to give him a Braviary. Not only is this a heroic bird that ties into his codename, but the red, blue, and white color palette is pretty close to Robin Hood, so close enough. Then I'd give him a Mimikyu. The whole deal with Mimikyu is that it harbors a love-hate relationship with its idol, to the degree that it disguises itself as one of them, fearing what others would think if they saw them for what they really were. This almost directly correlates to what Akechi feels towards Joker, so I'm giving it to him. And while from here there were a few other ideas of what I could make the 6th Pokemon, I'm gonna have to give him a Hisuian Zoroark because holy shit, so many of you commented on the poll that he just had to have one. I can't say it doesn't make no sense though. Not only is the red and white color palette pretty close to the suit design, but it also mimics Joker's Zoroark. And since Akechi's Prince suit design was intentionally made white and red to be the reverse of Joker's costume, this kind of was a perfect full circle moment. His place in the universe isn't all too surprising. He would serve as a combination of the traditional hometown rival and Colress from Black and White 2, where he'd start off as a friendly adversary, but each encounter the protagonist has with them, they slowly start to learn that he might be working with the evil organization of the region, eventually being one of the final trainers you have to compete against when storming their base. After you defeat him, he disappears. Then finally, we have to talk about Yoshizawa, who was surprisingly difficult. She'd first start with a Blacephalon, since I feel like it would make a very good gymnast. Then I'd give her a Kirlia, and this is gonna be very, very niche, but one of her animations from the GameCube games showed her doing this little spin. Then, we'd give her an Oricorio Piss form and Stanini because they are, they're both seen to be dancing Pokemon in episode 1033 of the anime, and, you know what? Fuck it. That's all she gets. She comes so late into the journey, she shouldn't have a full team of Pokemon. You know what? I'm done. She doesn't even get a place on the board. She gets like halfway through the journey and then, I don't know, dies. Oh wait, just kidding. That was actually her sister. My bad, guys. And we're done. Of course, there's always room for that sequel video, so make sure to leave a comment if you want to see it. But as much as I would love to keep talking about that, it seems we're about to find some land. So let's get off this raggedy boat and see what this new world has in store for us.
Holy shit, okay, it's fine. Let's just get back on the boat and go somewhere.
How could we possibly do that?
Oh, so you'd rather your chance in this hellhole, would you?
At least
You really stuck around here with your own devices. Let's be honest, you're a Persona 3 fan. You've got no survival
Life of
skills.
me, I had to stand up
fancy
like a
little life
toothpick
in your
pencil
little
because we had
Persona 3 life.
fucking.
Hey, thank you so much for watching. It's been a while since I've had to record a credits segment, but now that we have a Patreon, I get to thank some of the first members. So thank you very much to Kingdom of Rob, Faytail, John Cole aka Chicken Cowboy, Gunmetal Gator, Ask Retro Mod, Daniela Volkova, and Little Miss Opal. If you want your name in the credits or a chance to be in one of my upcoming videos, consider checking out the Patreon.